Atapu, Assalamu alaikum, Namaste, Haru Nefer. This is Ksakma Keperu with another exciting video for you. In this video, we're going to talk about the power of your Kamitic name. But before I do that, I want you to hit the like button on this video. If this is your first time to my channel, hit the subscribe bell to get notifications on when I go live and when I upload recorded videos. Also, we have free ebooks for you. You can click on the links below in the description box, download those ebooks, and start reading more on my spiritual teachings and the culture of the ancient Kamitic people. If you want to take your knowledge even further, then become a Patreon supporter. You can do so for as little as $1, $5, $20 per month. You get exclusive access to instructional videos, videos on how to meditate, how to summon spirits for your protection, how to do self-hypnosis, videos on divination, how to divine, read oracles, and so much more. So those who become Patreon supporters at the Osirian level get their oracle readings for free. So become a supporter today. What are you waiting for? Last but not least, share this video with family and friends so we can get the revolution started. So Haru Nefer, I want to touch on something today, but I want to let you know that no names have been changed to protect the innocent. We're going to reveal all. And this has to do with your name, whether it be Kamitic name or a Western name. You see, those of us who are following the Kamitic tradition, the tradition of our ancestors, the ancient Egyptian people, ancient Kamitic people, from Taimeri, from Kemet, land of the black, we decide at some point in our spiritual journey to put aside our Western name and to adopt a Kamitic name. But many of us in the culture are backwards, are ignorant, and are going in the wrong direction. I want to talk a little bit about that. I remember one woman who I was counseling, and she asked me, and this was about after 2 months of counseling, and she called me by my Western name. I said, hell no, and if you do, we'll never talk again. Don't know why she felt the need to be compelled to ask that question. You see, your Kamitic name is a mantra. Our ancestors worked with frequency and sound. And your name, when you utter it, aligns the subatomic particles in this fourth dimensional plane to be conducive to you and your wishes. Your name isn't a cow. It's a word of power that when somebody recites it, it gives you Ra, energy, power. Now, the traditional Western names, you were named after a particular field or industry your family was in. You understand? So if your name happened to be John Wood, your family had something to do with lumber or wood or building. Those names denoted a profession or an attribute, as in the Native American tradition, an attribute about you, sitting bull, falcon, hawk, running moon. But it's important that you understand that these names should not be arbitrary, meaning you just don't go look through Kamitic books and doctrines and say, I like that name Osset, I like that name Oseir, I like that name Sekhmet, and I'm just going to call myself by a name. That's not how it's done, my beloved. You see, in the tradition of our ancestors, when a child is born, there's a naming ceremony that is done for them. And then we go before either the priest or priestesses go into trance and communicate with the ancestors and come out with your name, or we go before an oracle and we ask the oracle, what is your name? And the oracle will tell us. See, your name is part of your destiny, what you must fulfill. I am named after the goddess Ma'at. That must mean I have to live truth, justice, and righteousness. That is my destiny. I am governed by the goddess Ma'at. Hence, in my name, Ma'ah, that is the masculine version of Ma'at. So when you call my name, it gives me energy to live truth, to live righteous, to be balanced. Here we've gotten into a bad habit of trying to come up with unique Western names for children, and we give our children, especially the women, these ridiculous names that don't mean anything, and the energy vibration doesn't have anything in it that will help them to fulfill their destiny. And more importantly, when you utter it, it doesn't energetically do anything. See, when I first got my name by a priestess, high priestess, I sat down and I started, first thing she told me to do, she said, I want you to chant your name as much as you can. You're going to give yourself energy and you're going to change the reality around you. That's what it's about. And I remember in priesthood that when the other initiates and priests found out I got my Kamitic name, they dropped my Western name so quick. And they even came to me and they said, don't let anybody chop up your name. They must pronounce your full Kamitic name to give you the full power of the name. When I prescribe for individuals who I'm counseling meditations and mantras to change reality, to manipulate reality, I give them mantra. Your name is the same thing. It manipulates reality. It manipulates the psyche. It changes everything. On a subliminal level, your spirit that is which is in you, Youre, the great uniter, the king, the resurrected one, is within you and responds to your Kamitic name. If you go and you're reading the ancient Metu Nectar or the Kamitic hieroglyphics and you just see a deity and you love that deity and they say, oh, I like to call myself after Ptah. Okay, that's fine, but is Ptah your destiny? Did you communicate with the ancestors and the ancestors said you should be called Ptah? Did you go to an oracle and the oracle said your name should be Ptah because your name is based on your destiny? This is why when I communicate with individuals on social media and I see that they have these names, I say, well, how did you get your name? By the way, just asking. And many of them are very reluctant to say because they know that they just picked it arbitrarily. That's not how you do it. Because your name is meant to correct something in your life. You see, my name means he who consistently lives truth and makes a spiritual transformation. So I had a problem with consistency. I would be, good with my diet here, and the next couple of weeks be bad, meditate this week, next week I wouldn't meditate. Ma'at is consistency, Ma'at is balance. So my name, when you recite it, helps me to be consistent and be balanced and be spiritual. It is a hakao. It is powerful. Our ancestors didn't just take these names arbitrarily. Hatshepsut is not named simply because it sounded cool. She had to honor the ancestors. That's why part of her name talks about that. You must understand that. The Shepsu, the ancestors. And when you are adapting a name that you pick arbitrarily, and because you read from a book and it sounds cool, it throws your entire vibrational frequency off because you're not following your destiny. You're not balanced. You're not ma'at. I talk to these individuals. I remember I met this guy, his name is Youre. And then he's going, the white man, the devil. Interrelationships are the devil. Brothers who do interrelationships are sleeping with the devil. So I said, brother, you know your name is Youre, right? You know that Youre is the great uniter of Upper and Lower Egypt. The one who merges the left and the right hemispheres of the brain. The one who is beyond the influence of emotion. The one who wears white and is impartial. takes no sides. Therefore, he can make clear judgments. He is God on earth. And you are saying things like evil, devil. You are betraying the name. I said, brother, how'd you get that name? Because you do not represent Youre in any way, shape, or form. And though you think it's cool to call yourself that, your actions betray who you are or what you aspire to be. There's something imbalanced with you because you're violating Tahuti. Nothing has a quality in and of itself. So how are you saying people, a whole race of people making a generalization are evil? What the hell is wrong with you? Many of our ancestors and those with us today are biracial. You're insulting biracial people who are still your brothers and sisters. How are you doing that? Why would you do that? But the ignorance is so profound and deeply buried. I met another brother calling himself Ma'at. I said, brother, you know that's a female name, right? You do understand that you have adapted the female name. And then he was like, well, in ancient Kemet, we venerated the male and the female principle. I said, well, you know, we were into equality. I said, no, we weren't really into equality. We were into cosmologics, and there's a big difference. I'm not going to get into that. But I said, there are rules to the language that our ancestors created. There's a structure. And you just can't decide to change that. But that's another discussion because feminism has destroyed us. It has confused young men. So they think it's okay to adapt a female name. And I said, brother, well, how'd you get that name? Did you go to the oracle? Did you do a naming ceremony? Of course, he didn't answer. And I said, do you realize that my name is Ma'a? That's the male equivalent of Ma'at. If you wanted to name yourself after that supreme goddess, you should have said Ma'a, M-A-A. But the real question is, what is your destiny? Is your destiny governed by the goddess Ma'at? Of course not, because you just picked it arbitrarily. You don't know what you're doing. We're so confused. We're so confused in what we're doing. This doesn't take a deep dive into understanding the Kamitic language to be what you have to be a linguistic. You know, you don't have to study linguistics. But it has just a basic knowledge and understanding that if you want to call yourself Sekmet, you should be a woman. I remember my first couple of years in priesthood. Met a woman by Osset. Her name was Osset. And she wasn't in the priesthood, but she would come to our classes. And her and I were involved in a business together. And we were working and things were going well. And at the time, I had met this young Brazilian girl and fell in love with her. So Osset found out that I liked this Brazilian girl and she was upset. So she wanted to dissolve the partnership. I said, fine, so you want to dissolve the partnership? So I said, let's go to the oracle. I went to the oracle and the oracle was like, run for the hills. Harukahuti Tem, Haru Tem, bad conflict. So I called her up one day, I said, do you mind giving me back a bit my portion of the business papers and all that? So I can do the business on my own and you can do your business on your own. She said, sure, I'm going to burn it all and you can pick up the ashes. And I'm like, you don't possess any of the energy of a set, which is meek, demure, reserved, devoted to Youre, devoted to truth and the resurrection of the God Youre. I said, and then I started questioning, well, how did you get your name? Because you didn't get in the priesthood. You must have just adapted it. And it wasn't too long after that, I was doing a production with another woman, and her name was Hedaru, you know. and very aggressive woman, sharp tongue. And I got curious. I'm like, well, why is this woman like so sharp tongued and argumentative? It's Heteru is sweet. She's joyful. She loves joy and to be pleasant and harmonious relationships. And every discussion with this woman was an argument. And then she fell in love with some guy in jail and wanted to borrow some money to get him out of jail. And we had good guys in the priesthood that she could be hooking up with, but there's some guy in jail she wanted. And I was like, Sophana said, you aren't a member of a society, are you? She goes, no, I was never a member, but I do come for classes. And I said, oh, that explains it. So you didn't get your name from one of our priestesses because you would not be named all set because you have none of that energy. You know, like I don't know what's going on with you, but you need to fix some things, you know. And I can go into the fact that your name has to actually mean something, so you just don't pick a deity name. You know, it doesn't work like that. Your name has to have a complete meaning, you know. Like the sun rises and falls over the hills or something to that nature, you know. Ra is the venerated one, you know, your name should really mean something. But that is an example of the imbalance that you see. Because in our ancient culture, it was always seeking to balance things out, to help harmonize things, to help you fulfill your destiny in life. And when you have men taking on the name of female deities, and you have, you know, people taking on names because they just think it sounds cool, then it's chaos. That's not living according to the way our ancestors wanted us to live. That is not respecting the ancestors who had an idea in mind of what you should be following in terms of your culture, ships. So what I'm saying is, if you're looking to get a Kamitic name, do it the right way. And then when you get your Kamitic name, chant it often to yourself. Give yourself that energy and that power so that you may live truth, the truth of your destiny. See, the first prerequisite to getting a Kamitic name is you must get your destiny reading or your incarnation objective reading. The incarnation objective reading determines why you are reborn. Why did you incarnate to the planet? Why are you back here? And based on that reading, we can then extrapolate what your name, your Kamitic name will be. And then we validate that by going to either the ancestors or the oracle, and the oracle legitimizes it and say, yes, this person should have this name. Again, let me say this. We've always done it this way. The first step in getting your Kamitic name is to do a destiny reading, an incarnation objective reading. Namaste, Michelle, a tapu. To do your destiny reading, find out why you're here. And then from that reading, determine what god or goddess governs your life, and then work out your Kamitic name. And then from there, have the oracle, the great oracle of Tahuti, sanction it, legitimize it, so that the energy is conducive to you living truth when people recite your name, when they recite your mantra. You see, in ancient Kamitic language, and many people don't realize this and don't know this, the ancient Kamitic language was based on frequency. And that frequency created a certain reality. That frequency created a certain reality. And the utterance of the language, the vibrational frequency created a reality in the Kamitic world. This is why many African traditions, you'll see some of the languages are clicks and ticks and whatever, you'll hear it. Because we knew that the language must work with the energetic field. The Western language is corrupt, it's a bastardized language. It does nothing to interact with the energetic field. In fact, they've done it purposely. They have stripped the language of any frequency, of any vibrations, so that it cannot create a reality. You understand? The Kamitic people were so powerful in what they did. The mere language that they spoke every day summoned spirits, summoned realities, summoned conditions, summoned scenarios by the mere utterance of that. And the language did not portray the identification of who they are, which was Osir. Their language had nothing to say about, oh, I'm just so stupid. Oh, you're an idiot. Our language didn't contain things like that. Because our language made sure that you, in everything was stated, identified with God, that you are God. They talked about from a point when a child is born to it's 18 years old, how many times that child hears the word no, which places a limitation upon your spirit. Now, this has been corrected by things like neurolinguistic programming, which knows that you must put together patterns of words that will communicate with the subconscious mind and awaken the spirit to do fantastic things. And you got to give them credit for putting NLP together. But it's only a very primitive version of the Kamitic language, because this is what we did. We put a language together that would empower the people to greatness. We limit ourselves in the way we speak to ourselves and the way we speak to others. You see, we call each other names, we disrespect each other. These things were absent from the Kamitic language. We disrespect elders, older people, because Western society doesn't value older people. They think they're senile, they make fun of them in the movies. Your self-talk is so important. And many of us have been trained to say, oh, I'm so dumb. Many of our parents have been trained to say, you're just like your father. Can't get away with that in the Kamitic language. You could never get away with that. In fact, even if you thought of uttering that, you had a communal society that would check you really fast. Because relationships were also governed by the community. It just wasn't you and your mate on your own. The community was watching you and saying, hey, watch yourself, raise those kids right. There were protocols. This whole idea of race is a construct. It's a lie. Black, white, Asian, Caucasian. See, Sebek is the deity of language, of verbal communication. And this Western society is governed by Sebek. This Western society is governed by the European mindset. They have not learned to integrate the left and the right hemispheres of the brain properly. So they just focus on the left brain, Sebek. This is why everything is about verbal discourse. Everything is nomenclatures, names, labels, definitions to the umpteenth degree. I don't identify as male, I'm non-binary. We keep coming up with stuff. There's, what is it, 58 genders now? Because that's the Sebek part going crazy. You are consciousness. Remember that. But the point of it all is that your name is defining who you are as a god or goddess. Your name identifies you with consciousness, with the truth of your existence and who you are and your mission. And in Kemet, we knew the dangers of what can happen if the left brain was left unchecked. It would do all types of wayward and backward things. You have to use the correct pronoun when you're addressing me. I identify as this. I identify as God. And I give thanks and praise to the Goddess Ma'at. So what I'm saying to you is that when we once had power buried within the language to manifest different realities and different dimensions, when we uttered words and sentences, that's been stripped of us now. It's been buried by the ruling elite and Illuminati. They've taken that knowledge from us. They've taken our language from us because they knew that language, if they left it to us, we would start to rebuild our civilization and change this world, shift it to a new vibrational frequency, one where they no longer exist. So they said we have to keep that Kamitic language out of their hands. We have to keep them ignorant, deaf, dumb, and blind as to the truth. There are certain language patterns that when I put people into hypnosis, trick the left brain into going to sleep and then access the right brain, where the power to change reality and to change your emotions lies. That's how powerful language patterns are. And if you don't carry the right name and you keep getting the wrong energy when someone is uttering your name, it's going to shift you off course because you're not fulfilling your destiny. You're not realizing who you truly are. And then you wonder why events in your life have not come together. And this is also important with the friends you surround yourself with. And I make sure the people I communicate, that the things that they say don't violate who I am as a divine being. And that they are careful in how they communicate with me. And most of the times I just laugh it off. You know, they say some things, I'm like, oh, okay, all right. And I may check them and they say something like, oh, I don't think I can do that. I'm like, yes, you can do that. Here's a mantra for that. You can do that. Recite this mantra and you can. Stop saying that word can't. See, in the educational system today, you'll have a teacher come to the parents and say, yes, your son is slow. They're not up to par with the other students. That's not how we worked in Kemet. In Kemet, we knew that through a career reading, this child should be pursuing this particular career. And this child learns through certain faculties. They learn through synthesis, they learn through auditory, they learn through visual, they learn kinesthetically. And then the lesson is taught through those modalities. There was a science behind that. In the modern Western system, we just throw you in the class and the teacher lectures you to sleep. Teacher came to me in college and said, Kasant, you're slow. I said, no, your teaching sucks. You're putting the class to sleep by talking for 90 minutes. That's not how you're supposed to be teaching. They asked me to leave. I can't help it if I know how the right way to do things. You know? So keep that in mind. Now, if you want to get your Kamitic name, you can sign up for it at yourkamiticname.com. Sign up for it early. It takes some time because there's a process involved. So it's going to take some time to get it done. But when you get it, it's one of the most profound experiences of your life. It's going to change you. And when you get it, immediately tell your friends and family members to stop calling you by your Western name, that you now have a new name and you understand your destiny and you're going to fulfill it. And in going through this process, though it may take some time, you're doing it the correct way. You're not just flipping through some books on Egypt history or Kamitic wisdom and picking a name and thinking that's going to do something for you. And then your spirit is going to be out of alignment. So do it the right way. And one of the magnificent things about our culture is that when a child is born, and we do the naming ceremony through the oracles and communicate to the ancestors, we can determine from the moment that child is breathing that we know the destiny of that child, what challenges, trials, and tribulations that child will have. If that child is born under Tahuti, we know that child's going to be thinking it knows this all. Oh, I know everything. I don't have to listen to anybody. Because hitting the Tahuti reading is a Haru Tem reading, meaning that it just wants to do its own thing. You can't tell it what to do. It's not open to listening to elders and to people. So you know that child will have that problem, so the parents can prepare for that. There's no guesswork. Teacher comes to you too, and teacher says, well, your child has problems listening to instruction. You can say, oh, we knew that. We knew that. He had a Tahuti reading. We knew that. We're working with that. We're chanting his name. You know, and giving him power and helping him to work that out. My brother and my family had a lot of problems with my brother. A lot of problems with my brother. And I sat down and went to the oracle and said, what is my brother's destiny? And I got Osir. I forgot what the other reading was, but that Osir told me enough. I said, oh, that makes sense. You see, my brother had problems. He was always arguing with people, conflicting with people. He didn't know how to work with people. And I said, that's that Osir reading coming up. Always against people, don't know how to work and unite with people. That's an Osir Tim reading. So his actions made sense based on his destiny reading. And the next thing, if things would have went correctly, would be to then give him the proper name, which probably would have included the name Osir in it to help him realize or come to the realization that within him is the indwelling intelligence, Osir, Osiris, and that he should be beyond the influence of emotion. He should be the great uniter. And if he had that knowledge and that information, he may have led a very different life. You see? When you understand the deity governing your life, you aspire in this lifetime to be divine and to be the likeness of the god or goddess. And you are reminded of that every time somebody calls your name. But if your name is Taniqua or Shaniqua or whatever, it becomes challenging for you. That name is not giving you energy. It is not identifying you with a god or goddess. And this society will be prejudiced against that name. I remember once when I was in the Nation of Islam, I was a captain in the South Bronx division, and I got the roster of all the people in the nation who were going to come and speak at our temple. And I remember looking down and just reading the name, John Muhammad, Ralph Muhammad, Jerry Muhammad. I was like, why are these people named Muhammad? What's going on here? And then I was like, and this is like shortly right after 9/11. I'm like, oh my God, do they realize that in taking on these names, how the society is going to see them? I'm not going to get into the fact of who Muhammad really was and all that, but I was just saying the society is going to be very prejudicial against them. And that we have to keep in mind as well. And I remember them coming to us and say, well, you know, are you going to change your name? I'm like, no, I'm not going to walk around with the name Muhammad. Why would I do that? You know, I'd just be a carbon copy of everyone else. But you know what? I'm not going to, you know, if they want to do that, that's on them. That is on them. But I'm going to look to the wisdom of a people who created the wonders of this world, the pyramids, who did the most magnificent things. I'm going to look to their science and follow their tradition because they kind of knew how to live life. The civilization was around for more than 10,000 years, so they must have been doing something right. So allow me to follow in that tradition where I identify as a God who I truly am. And not John Wood, Robert Strong, you know, none of that. So think about getting your Kamitic name. And it'll be the most important decision you can make in your life to change your name. In the magical occult community, and in Kemet too, many people had 2 or 3 different names. And some in Kemet had one name that was kept secret that they only would use when performing magical ceremonies. Because your name, your Ren, R-E-N, has power. And those individuals knew that they had to have a secret name to prevent people from having power over them. So many in the Kamitic tradition had several different names. And I'm not saying that you should do that. I'm just letting you know the history, the culture, and what that was about. And sometimes within the Egyptians, the Kamitic people, when they had something profound, a change in their life, whether they ascended to an office, became king or queen or things that they took on a different name. Akhenaten, when he wanted to praise the sun, he took on that name. Because he created a different religion that he was going to follow. And of course, his name contained Atum, the god, within it, because he wanted to identify as that, remember that. He didn't just pick something arbitrarily. And that name was very important to him in coming to the realization of who he was. And he did his best to try and follow the tenets of that God and to become the likeness of that God. You'll see him venerating the God and the sun rays coming down upon him and his wife. But that's another story. I digress. Thank you all for attending. As I said, sign up for your reading if you're interested. Please donate to the channel if you get an opportunity, because YouTube is still demonetized this channel. Hopefully one day they will look back and reevaluate their decision. But it's, I don't think it's, you know, they really looked at a lot of other channels too, and they demonetized them as well. So there's something going on where they're changing their rules and things of that nature. So your help would be appreciated in that sense. Also, too, if you're interested, we still have our reality manifestation courses going on. If you're interested in learning the deeper science of manipulating reality, sign up for the course. There's nothing else like it. It'll be an awesome experience. So thank you again. This is Kusak Ma Keperu, son of Maat and Tahuti. Maat is the beautiful goddess Heteru. Until the next video, Amun Ra.